The hour of convening having arrived, all members of the House will please report to their seats. All members of this House will report to their assigned seats. Mr. Clerk, would you ring the bell? All members will take their seats. We are about to have the morning roll call. All members present will please vote green to signify their presence in the chamber, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Would somebody vote Chairman Dempsey's machine present? Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. Doorkeepers will please close the doors and keep them closed. Good morning. I got up this morning and the meteorologist said it was going to be sunshiny today, and then I walked out and it made me wet. I don't know about y'all, but I guess they get it wrong sometimes. But it's a great day anyway, and we're going to begin our day with scripture reading and prayer by the chaplain, after which we will pledge allegiance to the flag of our country. Our chaplain this morning will be introduced by the lady from the 13th House District, Chairman Katie Dempsey. Chairman Dempsey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, friends. It's good to see all of you here this day. Rainy, sunshiny, whatever it is, we're all blessed to be here. There is no doubt. I woke up this morning and on my heart, for the first time, I think because of so much that we are all dealing with in this unique time, I said, thank you, God, for letting me be in your day. I felt it was not mine anymore. I think it is his, and it is so special that we start our day this way. When I was first elected, I didn't know it, so thank you, and thank you for inviting Father Austin Goggins to come and address us today. He is not my minister, but he is a minister to many in my hometown. Austin is the first vicar and pastor of St. Andrew's Anglican Church in Rome. With his wife, Lee, they planted that church in 2010, and they live in Rome with their 2 teenage sons, Thomas and Ethan, who have both paged here for me in this house. He's been a longtime resident of Floyd County, a 1995 graduate from Pepperell High School, and he received his undergraduate degree from our own Shorter College and a graduate education degree from Jacksonville State University. He received his Master's of Arts in Ministry from Nashotah House Theological Seminary, which is an Anglican and Episcopal seminary in Wisconsin. But he came home, thank goodness. Father Goggins is also blessed to be a teacher in my community with the Floyd County Public School System for 22 years. Today, he is a special education teacher serving emotional and behavior disorder students in the 6th and 8th grade at our Murchie Middle School, where he has coached football, track, cross country, and basketball. Please join me in welcoming Father Austin Goggins.
Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. Speaker Ralston, Representative Dempsey, Honorable members of this chamber, grace and peace to you from God the Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. It is a great honor to join you in our state's capital to share in your daily devotional time. Thank you, Speaker Ralston, for the invitation, and thank you, Representative Dempsey, for facilitating the process this morning. In addition to serving as a parish priest, I also teach public school, as was mentioned. I currently teach self-contained students with emotional and behavior disorders in Floyd County. However, I started out my career 20 years ago teaching Georgia history. So you can imagine my head is swimming a bit at the great pleasure of being here and in this building. Our text this morning comes to us from Paul's letter to the Galatian Christians, chapter 6, verse 9. And let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. In his letter to the Galatians, Paul was doing what he often did. He was correcting, admonishing, chastising, teaching, and encouraging. Paul is writing to new converts tucked away in the region of Asia Minor. Theirs was a world surrounded by false teachings, both inside and outside the church. The young churches of this mountainous area were confronted with problems both within and without. And in this letter to them, Paul runs the gamut. Paul has to defend and remind them of his own apostolic authority. He has to chase off those who would pollute the gospel of Christ by enslaving them to the old law. He lays out the great doctrine of grace and the original purpose of the law. And then ends in chapter 6 with an admonition that they all look after each other. They all love each other and bear one another's burdens. And it is in this last chapter in verse 9 that we find a thought I want to bring to your remembrance, a caution, if you will, in our short time together. And that warning, a warning issued in love, is that you do not allow yourself to grow weary in well-doing. But you may ask, Pastor, how can you grow weary in well-doing if what you have set your hand to is just, right, noble, and good? How can you ever grow tired or discouraged? I would submit to you this morning that if you ever had the unfortunate experience of seeing a student that you cherish go from being sweet, polite, and funny in one moment to being filled with rage, anger, and having to be physically restrained the next. And you know it's nothing that you did, it's nothing really even that the student did. But it is rather a sad convergence of horrible past physical abuse, parental neglect, or psychological issues beyond your expertise that you know what it means to grow weary in well-doing. If you have ever given yourself to a parish and loved a people with all your heart, celebrating their joys and highs in life, but also weeping and mourning with them, you know what it means to grow weary in well-doing. And if, like no doubt all of you, you have ever spent countless hours praying, thinking, and studying how you should handle the various issues of our state, and you have made a decision, voted, or promoted a policy with the best of intentions, to only find out that half of the people you are trying to serve are unhappy, and many, instead of seeing it as a simple disagreement on policy, assign to you the worst of motives, I'm sure you know what it means to grow weary in well-doing. I want to say to you this morning that the work you do is important, and I want to encourage you to not grow weary in well-doing. You don't have to be a priest to serve God. You don't have to work with special needs students or be a missionary in a far-off corner of the world to serve God. Martin Luther in the Middle Ages reminded us all that we can all have a vocation. For him, that meant that the monks or nuns cloistered in their cells were not automatically any closer to God than the peasant working in the field or the craftsman in his shop. We all have a part to play, and when we take the work we find ourselves doing and submit that work and our efforts to the Lordship of Christ, we find ourselves in a vocation. So this morning, to ward off growing weary, let us look to some phrases from a few verses preceding the verse I read. It is there we find the key. It is there that Paul says things like this: be gentle with those who make mistakes. Bear one another's burdens. Live life with humility. And let us do good to everyone. Stand with us and let us pray. Almighty God, who hast given us this good land for our heritage, we humbly beseech Thee that we may always prove ourselves a people mindful of Thy favor and glad to do Thy will. Bless our land with honorable industry, sound learning, and pure conduct. Save us from violence, discord, and confusion, from pride and arrogance, and from every evil way. Defend our liberties, and fashion into one united people the multitudes brought hither out of many kindreds and tongues. Endue with the spirit of wisdom those to whom in Thy name we entrust the authority of government, that there may be justice and peace at home, and that through obedience to Thy law we may show forth Thy praise among the nations of the earth. In the time of prosperity, fill our hearts with thankfulness, and in the day of trouble, suffer not our trust in Thee to fail. All of which we ask through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Join me with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Doorkeepers will unlock the doors. Chair recognizes the Chairman Hogan, the Chair of the Committee on Information and Audits.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Information and Audits has read the journal of the previous legislative day and found it to be correct. And furthermore, Mr. Speaker, folks have been eating bologna their entire life, but refuse a vaccine because they don't know what's in it.
Are you putting these in a book? Chairman Hogan, the Chair of the Committee on Information and Audits, reports that the journal of the previous legislative day has been read and found to be correct. Is there any objection to the confirmation of the journal? The Chair hears none, and the journal is confirmed. The clerk will read the resolution establishing the order of business for the day.
Mr. Burns, 159th, moves the following be established as the order of business during the first part of the period. Unanimous consents. Introduction of bills and resolutions. First reading and reference of House bills and resolutions. Second reading of bills and resolutions. Reports of standing committees. Third reading and passage of uncontested local bills and resolutions. First reading and reference of Senate bills and resolutions. Morning orders.
Is there any objection to the adoption of the resolution establishing the order of business for the day? The Chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. First reading of bills and resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Bill 325 by Representative Mont Tahana, the 17th, Gullet the 19th, Mathis the 144th, Bilton the 112th, Gravely the 67th, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 2 and Title 21 of the official code of Georgia Annotated relating to elections and primaries generally.
Special Committee on Election Integrity.
House Bill 326 by Representative Mont Tahana, the 17th, Gullet the 19th, Mathis the 144th, Jones the 25th, Belton the 112th, and others. A bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 2 and Title 21 of the official code of Georgia Annotated elections and primaries generally.
Special Committee on Election Integrity.
House Bill 327 by Representative Montano, the 17th, Kelly the 16th, abstration of the 104th, Reeves the 34th, Allen the 40th, and others. Bill being titled an act to prevent organized retail crime.
Judiciary non-civil.
House Bill 328 by Representatives Montano, the 17th, Gullet of the 19th, and Parsons the 44th. Bill being titled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 5 of Title 46 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to telephone service, general provisions.
Energy, utilities, and telecommunications.
House Bill 329 by Representative Lewis Ward of the 109th, Wilkerson of the 38th, Bennett of the 94th. Bill being titled an act to amend Title 20 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to education.
Education.
House Bill 330 by Representative Werkheiser of the 157th, Wiedauer of the 119th, Gaines of the 117th, Holcomb of the 81st, and Bodie of the 62nd. A bill being titled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 5 of Title 40 the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to general provisions regarding driver's licenses.
Motor vehicles.
House Bill 331 by Representative Frazier, the 126th. Bill being titled an act to provide a new charter for the city of Sardis.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 332 by Representative Kendrick of the 93rd, McLean of the 100th, Moore of the 95th, Park of the 101st, Stevens of the 164th, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend Article 4, Chapter 8 of Title 13 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to restrictive covenants and contracts.
Industry and labor.
House Bill 333 by Representatives Evstration of the 104th, Holcomb of the 81st, Nix of the 69th, and Smiley of the 135th. Bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 5 of Title 21 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to ethics in government.
Judiciary.
House Bill 334 by Representative Gullet of the 19th, Jones of the 25th, Leverett of the 33rd, Kelly of the 16th, and Burchett of the 176th. Bill being titled an act to amend Article 2 of Chapter 6 of Title 15 and Article 1 of Chapter 17 of Title 45 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to clerks of superior courts.
Judiciary.
House Bill 335 by Representative Kennard of the 102nd, McLaurin of the 51st, Beverly of the 143rd, Kendrick of the 93rd, Mitchell of the 88th, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 10 of Title 17 and Chapter 8 of Title 42 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to procedure for sentencing and imposition of punishment.
Judiciary non-civil.
House Bill 336 by Representative Corbett of the 174th, Dickey of the 140th, Perkle of the 155th, Jaspers of the 11th, Watson of the 172nd. Bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 23 of Title 2 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to hemp farming.
Agriculture and consumer affairs.
House Bill 337 by Representative Stevens of the 164th. Bill being titled an act to amend Part 1 of Article 1 of Chapter 8 of Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to general provisions regarding sales and use taxes.
Ways and means.
House Bill 338 by Representative Deloach of the 167th, England of the 116th, Williams of the 168th. Bill being titled an act to amend Code Section 4536 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to veterans' licenses.
Motor vehicles.
House Bill 339 by Representative Drenner of the 85th, Hughley of the 136th, Mitchell of the 88th, Couch of the 50th, and Schofield of the 60th. Bill being titled an act to amend Title 12 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to conservation and natural resources.
Natural resources and environment.
House Bill 340 by Representative Blackman of the 146th, Clark of the 147th, Corbett of the 174th, and Williams of the 168th. Bill being titled an act to amend Code Section 4536 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to veterans' licenses.
Motor vehicles.
House Bill 341 by Representative Wilson of the 80th, Oliver of the 82nd, Holcomb of the 81st. Bill being titled an act to amend an act to incorporate the city of Brookhaven.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 342 by Representative Washburn of the 141st, Powell of the 32nd, Jaspers of the 11th, Kelly of the 16th, and Montana of the 17th. Bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 14 to Title 43, the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to electrical contractors.
Agriculture and consumer affairs.
House Bill 343 by Representative Rhodes of the 120th, Loricki of the 169th, Corbett of the 174th, LaHood of the 175th, and Burns of the 159th. Bill being titled an act to amend Code Section 27.3.1, the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to requirements of permission to hunt on lands of another.
Game, fish, and parks.
House Bill 344 by Representative McLaurin of the 51st, a bill being titled an act to amend Article 3 of Chapter 5, Title 44 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to covenants and warranties.
Judiciary.
House Bill 345 by Representative Bruce, the 61st, Thomas, the 65th, Bazemore, the 63rd, Metz, the 55th, and Jackson, the 64th, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend an act to incorporate the city of South Fulton in Fulton County.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 346 by Representative LaRicchia, the 169th. Bill being titled an act to amend Article 3, Chapter 11 of Title 31 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to emergency medical services personnel.
Health and Human Services.
House Bill 347 by Representative Gullett of the 19th, Montana of the 17th, Scoggins of the 14th, Gunner of the 8th, Gamble of the 15th. The bill being titled an act to amend Code Section 42.1.19 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to petition for release from registration requirements.
Public Safety and Homeland Security.
House Bill 348 by Representative Davis of the 87th, Scott of the 76th, Schofield of the 60th, McLeod of the 105th, and Bernal of the 77th. Bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 8 of Title 34 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to employment security.
Industry and Labor.
House Bill 349 by Representative McLeod of the 105th, Hutchinson of the 107th, Kennard of the 102nd, Scott of the 76th, and Mitchell of the 106th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 11 of Title 15 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to the Juvenile Code.
Juvenile Justice.
House Bill 350 by Representative Davis of the 87th, Scott of the 76th, Schofield of the 60th, McLeod of the 105th, and Bernal of the 77th. Bill being titled an act to amend Titles 34 and 48 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to labor and industrial relations.
Industry and Labor.
House Bill 351 by Representative Davis of the 87th, Scott of the 76th, Schofield of the 60th, McLeod of the 105th, Bernal of the 77th, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend Article 6 of Chapter 3 of Title 35 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to Division of Forensic Services.
Public Safety and Homeland Security.
House Bill 352 by Representative Montana of the 17th, Knight of the 130th, Washburn of the 141st, Kelly the 16th, Gullett of the 19th, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 5 of Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to ad valorem taxation of property.
Ways and Means.
House Bill 353 by Representative Jones of the 25th, Couch of the 50th, Martin of the 49th, Nullowitz of the 42nd, Holcomb of the 81st, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend Article 3, Chapter 6 of Title 40 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to driving on the right side of the roadway.
Motor Vehicles.
House Bill 354 by Representative Williams, the 145th, Powell, the 32nd, Collins, the 68th, Bentley, the 139th, Mathis, the 144th, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend Title 43 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to professions and businesses.
Regulated Industries.
House Bill 355 by Representative Wiedauer, the 119th, Jones of the 25th, Smith of the 70th, Gaines, the 117th, Burns, the 159th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Article 5 of Chapter 6 of Title 12, the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to Georgia Carbon Sequestration Registry.
Natural Resources and Environment.
House Bill 356 by Representative Schofield, the 60th, Scott of the 76th, Davis of the 87th, Hughley of the 136th, Carter of the 92nd, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend Code Section 34.1.2, the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to prohibition of age discrimination in employment.
Industry and Labor.
House Bill 357 by Representative Campbell, the 171st. The bill being titled an act to amend an act to provide a new charter for the city of Pelham.
Intergovernmental Coordination.
House Bill 358 by Representative Setzler, the 35th Bar of the 103rd, Tarvin of the 2nd, Earhart of the 36th, Hill of the 3rd, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Article 3, Chapter 3, Title 38, the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to emergency powers.
Judiciary.
House Resolution by Representative Thomas, the 21st, Carson, the 46th, Wade of the 9th, Crow of the 110th, Chokas, the 138th, and others. A resolution opposing the measures set out in House Rule 1 and Senate 1 and urging the congressional delegation to avoid any federal action.
Special Committee on Election Integrity.
House Resolution 117 by Representative Bodie, the 62nd, Bruce, the 61st, Alexander, the 66th, and Thomas, the 65th. A resolution creating the House Study Committee on Homeowners Associations.
Special Rules.
House Resolution 118 by Representative Drenner, the 85th, Hughley, the 136th, Cannon, the 58th, Bazemore, the 63rd, and Mitchell, the 88th, and others. A resolution recognizing and commending Stacey Abrams.
Special Rules.
Senate Bill 5 by Senator Kirkpatrick of the 32nd, Burke of the 11th, Watson the 1st, Hofstetler of the 52nd, and Iowa the 48th. Bill being titled an act to amend Title 43 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to professions and businesses.
Health and Human Services.
That completes first readers.
Second reading of bills and resolutions, the clerk will read.
House Bill 10 by Representative Scott of the 76th, Beverly of the 143rd, Burnell of the 77th, Schofield of the 60th, McLeod of the 105th, and others. A bill relating to program weights and funding requirements under the Equality Basic Education Act. House Bill 292 by Representative Williams of the 148th, Meeks of the 178th, Hogan of the 179th, Burchett of the 176th, and Watson of the 172nd. A bill relating to ad valorem taxation of property. House Bill 293 by Representative Moran of the 96th. A bill relating to prestige license plates and plates for certain persons and vehicles. House Bill 294 by Representative Moran of the 96th, a bill relating to imposition rate computation of income tax. House Bill 295 by Representative Moran of the 96th, a bill relating to motor vehicles and traffic. House Bill 296 by Representative Moran of the 96th, a bill relating to weapons carry license. House Bill 297 by Representative Moran of the 96th, a bill relating to the official state language. House Bill 298 by Representative Scott of the 76th, Jackson of the 64th, Davis of the 87th, Holcomb of the 81st, Williams of the 168th, and others. A bill relating to the Department of Veteran Services. House Bill 299 by Representative Scott of the 76th, Jackson of the 64th, Davis of the 87th, Holcomb of the 81st, Williams of the 168th, and others. A bill relating to the Department of Veteran Services. House Bill 300 by Representative Kennard of the 102nd, Beverly of the 143rd, McLaren of the 51st, Kendrick of the 93rd, Bodie of the 62nd, and others. A bill relating to review of individuals' criminal history record information. House Bill 301 by Representative Park of the 101st, Mitchell of the 88th, Bruce of the 61st, Scott of the 76th, Schofield of the 60th, and others. A bill relating to dispossessory proceedings. House Bill 302 by Representative Mumptown of the 17th, Blackman of the 146th, Williamson of the 115th, Smith of the 133rd, Woodhour of the 119th, and others. A bill relating to general provisions regarding specific business and occupation taxes. House Bill 303 by Representative Clanton of the 75th, a bill relating to insurance. House Bill 304 by Representative Lott of the 122nd, Stevens of the 164th, Reeves of the 34th, Bentley of the 139th, Hatchett of the 150th, and others. A bill relating to revenue and taxation. House Bill 305 by Representative Hawkins of the 27th, Powell of the 32nd, Mathiak of the 73rd, Mitchell of the 88th, and Jackson of the 128th. A bill relating to the practice of massage therapy. House Bill 306 by Representative Gunter of the 8th, Kelly of the 16th, Holcomb of the 81st, Reeves of the 34th, Mumptown of the 17th, and others. A bill relating to meetings. House Bill 307 by Representative Cooper of the 43rd, Lott of the 122nd, Gaines of the 117th, Fry of the 118th, Hatchett of the 150th. A bill relating to insurance. House Bill 308 by Representative Wilson of the 80th, Holcomb of the 81st, Hutchinson of the 107th, Fry of the 118th, Mitchell of the 88th. A bill relating to conditional discharge. House Bill 309 by Representative Wilson of the 80th, Couch of the 50th, Maynard of the 56th, Fry of the 118th, Hutchinson of the 107th, and others. A bill relating to dangerous instrumentalities and practices. House Bill 310 by Representative Wilson of the 80th, Holcomb of the 81st, Hutchinson of the 107th, McLaurin of the 51st, Roberts of the 52nd, and others. A bill relating to the Brady Law regulations. House Bill 311 by Representative Davis of the 87th, Schofield of the 60th, Scott of the 76th, McLeod of the 105th, Burnell of the 77th, and others. A bill relating to insurance. House Bill 312 by Representative Davis of the 87th, Schofield of the 60th, Scott of the 76th, McLeod of the 105th, Burnell of the 77th, and others. A bill relating to revenue and taxation. House Bill 313 by Representative Park of the 101st, Bennett of the 94th, McLeod of the 105th, Davis of the 87th, Kennard of the 102nd, and others. A bill relating to general provisions relative to law enforcement officers and agencies. House Bill 314 by Representative Smith of the 41st, Wilkerson of the 38th, Weirdley of the 6th, Barton of the 5th, Jackson of the 128th. A bill relating to registration and licensing of motor vehicles. House Bill 315 by Representative Williams of the 168th, Jackson of the 128th, Hatchett of the 150th, Watson of the 172nd, Hughley of the 136th. A bill relating to alternative ad valorem taxes on motor vehicles. House Bill 316 by Representative Stevens of the 164th, Gaines of the 117th, Lott of the 122nd, Corbett of the 174th. A bill relating to duties requiring professional judgment and responsibilities of a licensed pharmacist. House Bill 317 by Representative Stevens of the 164th, Fry of the 118th, Smith of the 133rd, Rich of the 97th, and Dollar of the 45th. A bill relating to excise tax on rooms, lodgings, and accommodations. House Bill 318 by Representative Davis of the 87th, Schofield of the 60th, Scott of the 76th, McLeod of the 105th, Burnell of the 77th, and others. A bill relating to grand juries. House Bill 319 by Representative Martin of the 49th, Watson of the 172nd, Jones of the 47th, Smyers of the 135th, Douglas of the 78th, and others. A bill relating to other educational programs under the Equality Basic Education Act. House Bill 320 by Representative Neal of the 74th, Kendrick of the 93rd, Wynn of the 89th, and Evans of the 83rd. A bill relating to general provisions regarding insurance. House Bill 321 by Representative Neal of the 74th, Kendrick of the 93rd, Wynn of the 89th, and Evans of the 83rd, a bill relating to general provisions regarding insurance. House Bill 322 by Representative Wiedauer of the 119th, Gaines of the 117th, Reeves of the 34th, Oliver of the 82nd, Hutchinson of the 107th, and others, a bill relating to general provisions regarding the juvenile code. House Bill 323 by Representative Wiedauer of the 119th, Gaines of the 117th, Reeves of the 34th, Abstention of the 104th, Gravely of the 67th, a bill relating to the juvenile code. House Bill 324 by Representative Wiedauer of the 119th, Gaines of the 117th, Reeves of the 34th, Oliver of the 82nd, Hutchinson of the 107th, and others, a bill relating to general provisions regarding dependency proceedings. House Resolution 87 by Representative Davis of the 87th, Shannon of the 84th, Carter of the 92nd, Mitchell of the 88th, Kendrick of the 93rd, and others, a resolution urging the Metropolitan Atlanta Rapid Transit Authority to reaffirm its commitment to an extension of the rail system along the east side of Interstate 20 in South DeKalb County. House Resolution 96 by Representative Neal of the 74th, Beverly of the 143rd, Smiley of the 135th, Hughley of the 136th, and Mallow of the 163rd, a resolution urging the Georgia Department of Education to create a textbook and curriculum for African American Studies. House Resolution 97 by Representative Neal of the 74th, Carter of the 92nd, Kendrick of the 93rd, resolution urging the Secretary of State to investigate the feasibility of adopting it empowered for use by the state of Georgia. Senate Bill 20 by Senator Payne of the 54th, Mullis of the 53rd, Strickland of the 17th, Parent of the 42nd, Cowsert of the 46th, and others, a bill relating to the Georgia Child Advocate for the Protection of Children Act, through second readers.
Reports of standing committees. The clerk will read.
Representative Collins, the 68th District Chairman of the Committee on Public Safety and Homeland Security, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Public Safety and Homeland Security has set under consideration the following bill of the House and instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendation. House Bill 129 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Representative Collins, the 68th District Chairman. Representative John Corbett of the 174th District, Chairman of the Committee on Motor Vehicles, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Motor Vehicles has had under consideration the following bills of the House and has instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendations. House Bill 169 do pass. House Bill 200 do pass. House Bill 207 do pass by committee substitute. House Bill 210 do pass by committee substitute. House Bill 246 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Representative John Corbett of the 174th District, Chairman. Representative Mike Chokas of the 138th District, Chairman of the Committee on Small Business Development, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Small Business Development had under its consideration the following resolution of the House and has instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendation. House Resolution 11 do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Representative Mike Chokas, the 138th District, Chairman. That completes the reading of the reports of standing committees.
Okay, we're we're about to go on to the local calendar. Before we do, the clerk's office has asked me to announce. I want everybody to listen up. House will be in order. The clerk's office has asked that the chair announce that, unlike in past years, each member does not have a specific binder assigned to them. As such, please do not remove anything that's in the binder. If you need a copy of anything that's in the binder, then they will be more than happy to take care of you at the clerk's office, but someone else could end up with that binder and not have something that they need to review. Okay, we postponed the local calendar yesterday to give everyone time to read all of the bills. So Chair's gonna give a test now on the content of each of the bills. See who read them. Third reading and passage of uncontested local bills. For what purpose does Leader Beverly rise?
Mr. Speaker, I move that House Bill 162 be removed from the local calendar and be voted on separately.
Leader Beverly has moved that House Bill 162, having to do with Morgan County, be removed from the local calendar and voted on separately. What purpose does Whip Kelly rise?
To object to the motion by the minority leader, Mr. Speaker.
There is an objection. Does the gentleman move? The gentleman moves. All those in favor of the motion from the leader of the minority caucus to remove House Bill 162 from the local calendar and vote it separately will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. What purpose does the majority leader of the House rise? Parliamentary inquiry?
Parliamentary
State your inquiry.
Mr. Speaker, is it not true that House Bill 162 has met all the criteria imposed for local legislation to be considered and approved by this body, by our Committee on Intergovernmental Coordination chaired by Chairman Tankersley? It has met all the local advertisements that are required and the delegation agreement. And is it further not true, Mr. Speaker, that the chairman of the committee, Chairman Tankersley, has heard no objection or any concerns about this local legislation, and it should be passed as a courtesy to our local legislation?
Well, I'm sure the gentleman believes that to be true, and knowing the chair of that committee, I can't say I would bet everything was done yet, but I am confident that she has dotted all the I's and crossed the T's. What purpose does Whip Wilkerson rise?
Parliamentary
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that we have received numerous emails from people in Morgan County who are concerned about the fact that a currently bipartisan board will be replaced with a board that is appointed by commissioners that do not have that same commitment, so that is why we are raising this concern in Morgan County?
I'm sure the gentleman believes that to be true. The chair has not received any emails at all. What purpose does Representative Yerta rise? He waves off. Okay. Have all members of what purpose does the majority caucus whip rise?
Mr. Speaker, isn't it parliamentary inquiry?
State your inquiry.
Isn't it true that the legislation, House Bill 162, clearly defines the Board of Election to be bipartisan, as both political parties have an opportunity to appoint individuals of that Board of Election? I think that is the definition of bipartisan, Mr. Speaker. Isn't that true?
If the gentleman so states, I'm sure he believes it to be true. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? Last one. What purpose does Chairman Mitchell rise?
Mr. Speaker, is it a parliamentary inquiry?
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that this proposal will not assure that there will continue to be nonpartisan oversight and accountability of the election process in Morgan County, which is the very definition of election boards?
Well, we're about to find out what the will of the House is in that regard. Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the gentleman's motion. The ayes are 69, the nays are 97. The motion has failed. If there is no objection, we will now vote on the local calendar as a whole with a recorded vote. Hearing none, it is so ordered. The clerk will read the local calendar.
House Bill 162 by substitute by Representative Belton in the 112th, Morgan County. House Bill 211 by Representative Williams, the 148th, Town of Arava. House Bill 225 by Representative Prince, the 127th, City of Rennes. House Bill 242 by Representative Chokus, the 138th, City of Americus. House Bill 251 by Representative Glanton, the 75th, Clayton County.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered on the local calendar? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which was favorable to the passage of the bills? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall these bills now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bills on the local calendar will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of the bills on the local calendar. The ayes are 123, the nays are 41. These bills, having received the requisite constitutional majority, are therefore passed. We're going on now to morning orders. We're going on to morning orders. The chair is so excited about bills being on the rules calendar that we're going to limit morning orders to 1 minute each today. We have several lined up. Chair recognizes Chairman Petrie for a morning order. If you have a morning order, you can come on down front. Conserve a little time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, if you would rise with me to recognize the loss of a great Georgian. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize the life of Eleanor Sandy Torrey West. Miss West died recently on January 17th at the age of 108. Miss West was a remarkable woman who did great things for the Georgia coast and particularly for the conservation of our coast. Back in 1978, Miss West and her family sold Ossabaw Island to the state of Georgia for half of its appraised value. And that land was forever established as a heritage preserve, our first heritage preserve in the state of Georgia, permanently protected and dedicated to cultural, scientific, and natural research and education. This remarkable woman has done so much for this coast. My friends, if you have not been to Ossabaw Island, make a visit. The most beautiful 26,000 acre island on our Georgia coast, a jewel of this coast, and it's ours. It belongs to the people of Georgia because of Sandy West. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Remind members 1 minute each. Chair recognizes Representative Mac Jackson for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I rise for a Black History moment for Washington County. Barry Pops Gordy was born July 10, 1888 in Sandersville, Georgia. He grew up working on the family farm with his brothers and sisters. Through hard work, the Gordys were able to save enough to buy more land and a better home to live in. The Gordy children learned the principles of hard work and careful business practices very early in life. After meeting a pretty local school teacher named Bertha Fuller, young Barry Gordy convinced her that she should marry him. After Pop was married, he moved his family to Detroit, Michigan. He taught himself to plaster and do carpentry until he became a contractor. He bought a grocery store, which became a small institution within the east side of Detroit's Black community. Pop and his wife, Bertha, continued their job of raising a family of 8 children with such quality that they would live to see their family claimed as one of the most outstanding Black families within the nation. His son, Barry Jr., was the founder and board chairman of Motown Records. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Will Wade for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and to my fellow colleagues. I rise today just to give you guys some good news and recognize a local hero back home. Today, a few weeks ago, you let me pass my first resolution, and I appreciate Speaker Ralston, who he and I joined in representing Dawson County. We are now representing today, February 9th, 2021, as Chase Elliott Day all across Georgia. So big shout out for number 9, and the date actually is kind of a special meaning for that family in our community because both father and son representing that of the second month, and then the number 9 car. And I just also happen to represent the 9th District of Georgia, so it's a great day. I just want to remind folks that Chase Elliott started out racing as an 8-year-old boy. Champions do not happen without a lot of hard work and a long-term vision. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and my colleagues. I yield the well. Thanks.
Chair recognizes Representative Maynor for a morning order.
Thank you, Speaker Ralston. On behalf of District 56 and just my family, the caucus has decided that we're going to celebrate Black History Month, and I couldn't decide who I wanted to do, and so I decided to do my grandfather. This is a picture of him. This man was born, his name is Julius Hutto Maynor. He was born in 1911 in Dooley County, Georgia, Byronville. Our family are farmers in Dooley County to this day. The family has been researched all the way back to the 1820s. We own the same land that we've owned since the 1800s, and we're still farming in that area to this day. Julius Hutto Maynor.
Chair recognizes Representative Frazier for a morning order. Representative Frazier. Going once, twice, 3 times. Chair recognizes Representative Hutchinson for a morning order.
Good morning, colleagues. Today I want to introduce you to Priscilla and Peyton. They are sweet, well-behaved girls who enjoy playing with their friends, getting along with others on the playground, watching cartoons, playing on their tablets, playing checkers, reading, and watching funny movies. Priscilla and Peyton are one of far too many children available for adoption today in Georgia. These sweet, beautiful girls are in need of a forever home. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
That completes morning orders. We're now going on to the rules calendar. We actually have bills on day 14. Thank you, Chairman Smith. The first bill of the 2021 session goes to the Chair of the Higher Education Appropriations Committee, Chairman David Knight. Chairman Knight, I forgot to have the clerk read the caption. I got so excited. This is a big moment. Mr. Clerk, would you read the caption to House Bill 265?
House Bill 265 by Representative Knight of the 130th, Williamson the 115th, and others, to be titled an act to amend Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to revenue and taxation so as to revise the terms Internal Revenue Code and Internal Revenue Code of 1986. This bill having referred to the Committee on Ways and Means. That committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chairman England, you just spent money. I mean, that don't count. Chair recognizes Chairman Knight to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What an honor, and again, what a stimulating topic for a first bill, the income tax code. So I'll be brief. Members, this is our annual Internal Revenue Code update. As you know, the Internal Revenue Code passes laws at the federal level. Our state actually starts with, if you will, the state rules, and then we'll either add or subtract from that in our code. This is that annual update. Real briefly, It provides for several changes, two of which are increasing the deductibility of medical expenses, charitable contributions. It also adjusts the low-income housing tax rate and the ceiling. One of the important measures, I think, is all important to us in Georgia, especially dealing with our restaurants. As you know, the 50% deduction on meals. This also piggybacks off off the feds, in which we're now allowing for the next 2 years 100% deductibility on meals. We want to make sure that our restaurants survive this COVID pandemic that we have. We know they're having a lot of issues. Other thing is, we've got a provision here that excludes gross income from the discharge of qualified principal reduction indebtedness. In other words, if you go into bankruptcy and you lose your home, you don't have to add that back to forgiveness of debt. We've got a provision in here that I think is great for Georgians and employees. Certain employee payments on student loans, allowing the employers to actually pay up to around $5,250 without having to include that income on the employee's W-2. So great policy there. And then most of all, it's clarification on regarding the CARES Act and a lot of these PPP loans that you hear about. We're now making sure that we're clarifying the loans. The forgivability of those loans is non-taxable at the state level, and the deductibility of the expenses associated with the loans are deductible. In other words, there will be no tax effect on the folks that use those. So that is good news. It's good news to make sure that we're taking care of our businesses and our citizens in this time of crisis. And I would ask that you support the IRC update and that we quickly get it over to the Senate so that we can get it out and we can get this passed so that all of the CPAs and tax preparers can get the software updates, because right now people are preparing tax returns and it is time sensitive. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I'm going to ask for everybody's favorable consideration and I'll stand for a question or two if needed.
You do not have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you all.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered on House Bill 265? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of House Bill 265 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, have all members now voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines on the passage of House Bill 265. The ayes are 166, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 105.
House Bill 105 by Representative Clark and the 147th and others, to be titled an act to amend Part 3 of Article 3 of Chapter 2 of Title 38 of the Fiscal Code of Georgia annotated relating to pay, pensions, and allowances of state military personnel. This bill having referred to the Committee on Defense and Veteran Affairs. That committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes the chairman of the Defense and Veterans Affairs Committee, Chairman Heath Clark, to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, I have House Bill 105 before you today. This is a housekeeping measure to update 38-250 because when when Section 38.2.6.1 was added to our code, it was inadvertently passed but didn't authorize payment for people who serve under that section. And what that section is the governor can make a request for people to volunteer for active duty service. Lately, we've seen that happen over the last couple of years regarding Cyber Defense Task Force being called, asked for people to serve, and being called to help when some of our state systems have been attacked. Just to make it clear, no guardsman has never not been paid. This just makes it clear and authorizes the Georgia Guard to pay guardsmen when they volunteer for service upon the governor's request. That's the bill, Mr. Speaker, and I'll stand for any questions.
You do have a question. Do you care to yield?
I will yield.
Chair recognizes the Minority Leader of the House, Leader Beverly, to your left for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
I will yield.
I just have just a quick question. On Chapter 2, Article 1, Parts 2 and 4, you distinguish between organized militia and unorganized militia. Could you just give us just a brief overview of what the difference is between the two?
The organized militia, you're talking about the definition on line 3. The organized militia is the legal term when you include the Guard and the Governor's State Defense Force. It's not some paramilitary group. It's the official term for the Georgia National Guard and the State Defense Force combined.
You have no further questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I ask for your favorable consideration.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered on House Bill 105? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of House Bill 105 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Are you wanting to be recognized, Representative Cannon? For what purpose?
Parliamentary
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that the Georgia National Guard used non-lethal force on citizens this year?
I'm not sure what kind of force they used. I don't know that they were required really to use any. Have all members now voted? What purpose does Representative Bonner rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Mr. Speaker, is it not true that the National Guard has been the absolute hero over the last several years during this pandemic and has provided safety and security not only for these Capitol grounds, but for areas all across our state?
Well, the chair would agree. What purpose does Chairman Chokas rise?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Isn't it also true that the National Guard in the state of Georgia pioneered the efforts to sanitize and protect our senior citizen facilities as well as hospitals and other community facilities during the pandemic?
I believe that to be true. Have all members now voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of House Bill 105. The ayes are 165, the nays are 1. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 205.
House Bill 205 by Representative Williams of the 148th, Lumsden of the 12th, and others to be entitled an act to amend Title 33 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to insurance so as to provide a framework for regulating the offering or issuance of travel insurance in this state. This bill having referred to the Committee on Insurance, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Before I recognize you, Representative Williams, what title is the insurance code in our law? I want you to address that when you get in the well, please. Would you? Okay. And then if there's any significance to that number, you might want to touch on that too. Chair recognizes Representative Noel Williams to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, members. I rise today in discussion of House Bill 205. This was a bill that the travel insurance we brought before the House. This is the third year we would bring it before the House. The previous 2 years it passed out of the House, and then last year we had unforeseen COVID that kind of stopped everything in its tracks. I'm going to hit the few highlights. This bill passed out of committee 100%, but it deals with travel insurance, creating a more level playing field, providing more uniform regulation across the states. Specifically, the bill clarifies sales practices and applies unfair trade practice laws, creates a uniform product structure that improves efficiency and product cost savings. Also, it imposes consumer disclosures in addition to standard states' insurance laws, allows for its sale using group or blanket policies, and this model was assembled from the best features of travel insurance laws from many states, and it added robust consumer protections. With that, Mr. Speaker.
You have,
yes, ma'am.
Did you address the questions I had?
I will address it now.
Why are you waiting?
I was waiting for you to get back to the podium.
Oh, okay.
In Title 33, there's a well-known book that had 33 chapters. That's a very good read. Also, that's when our Savior Jesus died at age 33. So there are many significant items with number 33, but those two come to mind, Mr. Speaker.
You got a few questions up here.
Okay. I yield for questions.
You know, you get a little rusty from one session to the other in explaining bills.
Yes, sir.
That's obviously what's happened here. Chair recognizes the chair of the Game, Fish, and Parks Committee because it's a special day for him. For a question, to your right.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the gentleman yield?
I will.
Does this insurance and will this insurance cover transcending time? If not, tell me why.
Well, sir, as you know, insurance covers time when someone dies, but transcending time, I don't see how this applies to cover that at this time.
Chair recognizes Chairman Watson to your right for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
I do.
Is it not true that your bill is just making sure that no cheating takes place in Title 33? And where else would this apply?
Well, no cheating is a very good reference. It's on some door shops and above innkeepers. And no cheating also applies in this house, in this august body. And also with insurance, because if you cheat, you get hammered on it. That's my answer.
You go to prison sometimes too, can't you?
Yes, sir, sometimes.
You further yield?
I'll yield for one more.
One more. Chair recognizes Chairman Fleming to your left for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In rules this morning, I gave you a preview of this question so you would have time to prepare for it. But as I understand it, this insurance bill also deals with travel across the oceans through the waters. Is that correct?
You are correct.
Please relate the importance of that idea to the theory of the grand circulation of water.
Well, I can only say with the grand circulation of water, water is constantly moving. sort of like with travel insurance. If you're on a boat, hopefully you're constantly moving. In life, we're constantly moving. We're moving until we die, kind of like with travel insurance. You're moving as long as you have it.
I think we get your point.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hope you all vote for this bill, and I yield the well.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Chairman Hogan or Chairman Burchett, would one of y'all vote Representative Williams' machine? I don't know how he wants to vote, but he's going to vote for the bill. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of House Bill 205. The ayes are 164, the nays are 4. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 174.
House Bill 174 by Representative Wiedauer, the 119th, and others, to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 40(1)80 of the official code of Georgia Annotated relating to safe operations of motor carriers, commercial motor vehicles, and drivers. This bill having referred to the Committee on Motor Vehicles, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Representative Wiedauer to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, come today with House Bill 174. It is the annual bill for the Department of Public Safety to codify their rules in accordance with federal law, bring them up to date to 2021. I will yield for any questions.
You have no questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
Brevity. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the passage of House Bill 174, the ayes are 167, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 112.
House Bill 112 by Representative Kelly the 16th, Cooper the 43rd, Carpenter the 4th, and others, to be entitled an act to amend an act relating to torts to provide certain immunities from liability claims regarding COVID-19. This bill having referred to the Special Committee on Access to the Civil Justice System. That committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes the Majority Caucus Whip, Representative Kelly, to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the House, I come before you today with House Bill 112, which is a bill that couldn't get any simpler, but couldn't be more important. All House Bill 112 does is change one number on one line in Georgia's code. It extends the sunset on the COVID liability protections that this House passed in June. But it's more important than that, Mr. Speaker, because we know our state continues to be ravaged by a pandemic. We know that our businesses continue to struggle to stay open. We know that our hospitals and our medical community continue to struggle to take care of the Georgians that are our constituents. At a time when they're being attacked by this horrible virus, what we don't need is for them to be attacked by frivolous lawsuits. And so what we're doing today is simply changing the sunset from July 14th, 2021 to July 14th, 2022, so that we can keep our economy open, so that we can keep our businesses growing, so that we can keep our citizens treated. We have a responsibility, Mr. Speaker, to make sure that there's facilities for our citizens to be treated in. We have a responsibility to Georgians who want to continue to operate their small businesses. And what we have an opportunity today is give them the certainty that for the next year, they don't have to worry about frivolous lawsuits. I'll tell you what the bill doesn't do, Mr. Speaker. It doesn't change any of the current protections that a single employee in the state of Georgia enjoys through our workers' compensation system. When we passed the bill in June, there was some debate on what this would do to employees' rights. And that should be a short conversation because it's nothing. It literally said in the bill, this shall not impact Georgia's Workers' Compensation Act. So there is nothing, not a single right that will be taken away from a single employee in our state. What this will do, though, is allow businesses to stay open so that employees have an opportunity to go to work, so they continue to have a paycheck, so they continue to provide for their families. This bill has the support of the medical community, the hospital association. It also supported by our business community. Proud to have the chamber, the Georgia Chamber, the Metro Chamber, as well as the National Federation of Independent Business supporting this measure. Mr. Speaker, I'll be glad to take a few questions. It feels like a few years ago since we were here in June, but I know the debate is still fresh on people's minds, as it should be. This is important for our state, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.
You got a few. Do you yield?
Yes, sir, Mr. Speaker, I'll yield.
Chair recognizes Representative LaHood for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
I'll yield.
Is it not true that I've heard from countless members of the business community across this state who are in favor of this bill?
If the gentleman so states, I'm sure he's had the same conversations I have.
And do you further yield?
I will.
Is it not true that without this bill that we passed back in June, a lot of the businesses that are open today providing very needed goods and services to the citizens of this state would not be open?
You're absolutely correct.
It would not be providing the services that we're enjoying today.
That's correct. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you further yield?
Yes, sir, I'll yield.
Chair recognizes Chairman Petrie to your left for a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
I'll yield.
Is it not true that we are in unprecedented times for healthcare providers all across the state and that they are under siege?
We are.
Does the gentleman further yield?
I'll further yield.
And is it not true that this measure will allow healthcare providers all across this state to continue to stay focused on protecting and serving the most vulnerable in our society at this most critical time without concern for frivolous lawsuits?
You're exactly right. That's what's taken place since June, and with the passage of this, we can ensure that it'll take place through July 14th, 2022. Mr. Speaker, I know there's going to be some folks that want to speak against this, want to speak against helping our businesses stay open, want to speak against protecting our hospitals. But Mr. Speaker, right now I'm going to yield the well, and we'll give it a listen.
The gentleman has yielded the well. We do have some members that have signed up. I think that the Rules Committee put a time limit of 1 hour of debate on each bill on today's calendar. The chair having the authority to allocate that time. So the chair will allocate 30 minutes to those speaking in opposition to the bill. And they can carve that up the way they choose. Chair recognizes Representative Wilson to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I voted for this bill last year, but I rise against House Bill 112. And I want to make sure I make myself as clear as humanly possible in my comments because of the massive damage this body stands to do should we make the mistake of passing this measure today. But just to underline how serious I am, I call your attention to the fact that I went a whole term without making it down here to the well to speak against any bill. I don't take this lightly, and I know the members of this chamber don't either. Dealing with COVID has been the top priority of every member in this chamber for almost a full year now. Anything we consider on COVID needs to be scrutinized with the strongest microscope available, and I'm sure on this, our constituents would all agree. When we first considered creating this liability shield last June, we were faced with a great deal of uncertainty. We didn't know how we were going to get through this and when we could get back to normal. And we wanted answers to those questions, not just for our own safety, but for the people who write to us needing help and clarity on how the state was dealing with this pandemic. How do you know what's actually safe? Safe and legal in the eyes of the state, when every person around you represents a threat to your health, your liberty, if they act irresponsibly. We didn't have a legal framework ready to deal with the potential for harm caused by an airborne infectious disease that we didn't fully yet understand. So in creating this immunity last year, we actually created a legal responsibility for folks to behave appropriately. And we took steps to spelling out what appropriate was. That's why I joined many of you in this chamber to vote for it. But despite what some folks out in the hall and in the other chamber said, we haven't had waves of lawsuits crippling our small businesses. In fact, just the opposite. There hasn't been a single successful recovery for any Georgian who has been negligently or maliciously exposed to COVID under these provisions. More than creating a standard of care, we created de facto blanket immunity. And I don't believe for more than a second that there isn't a single person or single corporation in this state who knew and ignored risks, spread the virus, and has caused harm to Georgia workers and consumers. We know this because we know what we've seen this past year. And if you care about the people in this state like I do, and I'm sure you do, you should be hollering mad. I felt like a pot full of water left on a stove that's just barely lit for hours and hours, slowly rising to a boil every single day this past year. Mr. Speaker, this is a lot less hypothetical when we take into account what's happened across the country this past year. At a meatpacking plant in Iowa last spring, and this has been documented in the very kind of litigation the bill we have before us would preempt. Supervisors knew about the hazards that they were sending workers to face. Plant managers are alleged to have explicitly told supervisors to ignore COVID symptoms and organized a betting pool for supervisors to wager on how many employees would test positive. That's the kind of abhorrent and abject disregard for human life that this kind of liability shield has allowed to infiltrate our society this past year. And the same company that owns that facility in Iowa operates a major chicken plant in Albany, where cases were the highest per capita in the nation around the same time those actions took place. And it's not just poultry workers we need to be concerned about. We're not talking about the transit workers who have allowed Georgia workers and employees to get to their jobs over the past year, who have continued working. We're not talking about the grocery store employees who make sure we have food at home to feed our families. We're not talking about protecting teachers. But what you heard from the previous speaker is true. This bill does nothing for Georgia employees. We've got over 15,000 dead Georgians in a healthcare system on the brink of collapse, with schools closed and bars open across the state. We've got a labor department that can't, or maybe just won't, process unemployment claims, sending folks on the brink to the food pantry line or back out job hunting, when the entire point of increased benefits that Republicans and Democrats both agreed on was to enable working people to weather this storm in the safety of our homes. We've got a vaccine that's only available if you've got the time and technical capacity to refresh a website every 30 seconds every day of the week. We've seen half measure after half measure fail to solve this crisis. And what has filled those gaps? Uncertainty, disinformation, and danger. And instead of trying to tackle any of those issues with this bill, we're trying to let bad actors off the hook. We're shrugging at everyday folks, then whispering to corporate interests how they can cover their bottom line. We need to be stronger in setting out the rules business owners must follow to keep working Georgians safe, not extending a liability shield that we've seen in practice is both too vague and too broad. Now, most Georgians who've been able to get back to work aren't as lucky to work in a workplace like ours that treats this incredibly transmissible virus as seriously as we do, with mask mandates and surveillance testing and plexiglass protectors. I recognize this body is never going to pass a mask mandate for public accommodations. Even if through our own rules we hypocritically acknowledge it is a responsible safety precaution necessary for us to do our jobs. But what I do ask is that we not continue down the path of prioritizing shareholders and CEOs who don't even live here over the working people of Georgia by passing this measure. I've got a bill that would define the real standard of care for businesses to meet, tacked to science-based federal OSHA guidelines. And wherever you fall on this vote, I do hope you'd consider joining me in pushing for more clarity on what actions this immunity even covers. Without that clarity, this vote is a ceremonial question asking who we really represent, Georgians or multinational corporations. Mr. Speaker, I know there are a number of speakers who want to speak on this, so I'll yield the well.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Chair recognizes Representative McLean to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you all too for just me, I guess, rehashing. You know, last year we had SB 359, and all we have done is just change the number of this bill to HB 112. Again, what have we done? We have prioritized businesses. We haven't done anything for the workers. We have not said anything about what they need. You know, I heard the author say that he had the support of the business community, but did he say he had the support of the workers? No, he did not say that, because they don't support this bill. You know, Georgia is the 6th highest in the country with COVID infection, the 6th highest. You know what that means? That means that there's only 5 ahead of us and 43 below us. You know, sometime we've got to say that we need to make sure that we can take care of the workers. And who are receiving those? Who are the people that are being affected? Workers. You know, last year I came up to talk against this bill, and I talked about March 16th, because March 16th was when we came to this building to give the authority to the governor to shut down Georgia. And I say that only because I want you all to know that 15,000 folks have passed in the state of Georgia since that time. But I only had one, my admin. She called me that morning on March 16th to share with me that she thought she had pneumonia. That's what she thought. But we know better. Here it is. Instead of us ending this, we're extending this. We're extending what we're trying to do with immunity for corporations. Corporations do not need immunity. I mean, you've got to realize that. And I look at where we are and what we should be doing. What we should be doing is taking care of workers, but we're not. You know, and corporate immunity would not be needed if you didn't have bad actors. If you didn't have people, corporations that wanted to get away with murder, we wouldn't need that. We wouldn't need this bill. This bill would not be needed whatsoever. But what do we have? We have corporations that want to make sure that we open up the stores. We have corporations that want to make sure we open up the schools, open up the theaters. Everything wants to be open, but do we want to take care of the workers? Do we want to take care of the workers? If you want to take care of the workers, you would vote no on this. There's not one time that the author said anything about the workers. Only thing he said was business, 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 business. But he didn't say one thing about the working men and women. And what I want you all to realize is that somebody has got to say something about the working men and women. So, is it needed? No. Let working men and women know that the people in this house care about them, care about their lives, and also their families' lives, and the safety of their families and the health of their families. Mr. Speaker, the only thing I can say is we have a responsibility, and that responsibility does not pertain to us taking care of a building, but taking care of workers and their families. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield the well.
Before we go on, Mr. Clerk, would you please read Rule 8.2 of this House?
The use of cameras, video cameras, movie cameras, cell phone cameras, and similar devices on the floor of the House, in the gallery, or in the lobbies during any speech or legislative proceeding is prohibited unless expressly authorized by the Speaker.
Pretty clear. Chair recognizes Representative Bodie to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in complete opposition to HB 112. Now, in my rising, I will not revisit or redebate the original SB 359 COVID-19 Business Immunity Protection Bill from last session. However, I will rise in opposition to state that this bill is going to continue not to protect workers. When COVID-19 hit this country and this state last year, everyone was trying to figure out, what is this new disease? How do you protect yourself from this new disease? How do you find the personal protective equipment to protect yourself from this disease? COVID-19 hit Georgia hard. So hard that we had to suspend legislative session last year on March the 13th, 2020. We had to convene a special session on March the 16th, 2020. So the governor could enact special executive powers. But today, over 750,000 Georgians have contracted the disease, COVID-19. Almost 15,000 deaths have occurred right here in this state. So when COVID first hit this state, we didn't know what it was. We were all trying to figure it out. That is the reason why it's called the novel virus, because it was new. In my profession, they call that a case of first impression, because you really don't know what you're dealing with. But we know today what we're dealing with. We know the pain that this disease has done. We know the deaths that have occurred, because some of those deaths have been our family members, our friends, our classmates. So by passing this bill, HB 112, we're going to continue not to protect workers. Now, I know some would say that we have to protect businesses. And as my dear friend stated earlier from the Democratic caucus, the sponsor told you time and time again, business, 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 business. But I don't recall hearing the word worker spoken one time. What about the people? What about the poultry worker that has to go to work every day to take care of his family, that's packed in, where PPEs may not even be available? What about the grocery store cashier that has to go to work every day to get herself through college, to take care of her family? Now, in front of me, I have a plexiglass. We have plexiglass to protect us from the COVID-19 virus. And you're going to hear some grocery store owners in this particular situation that would say, we social distance in our store. You're going to hear others say that we ask customers to wear masks. And you're going to hear others say that we install plexiglass to protect our cashiers. Think about that worker. What happens when an individual in her line coughs? Imagine the terror that goes through because the individual does not have a mask on. And the plexiglass only comes to her waist. You know what that means, right? The plexiglass is there not for her, not for the worker. It's there for the cash register. So that means that the cash register is covered. That means the money is protected, but the person is not, because it's not a priority of that business to protect that young lady. So I ask you today to vote against this bill because it does not protect workers. We have to do in this chamber is to consider workers and consider business and try to merge both together, because I'm not anti-business. I'm a small business owner, and I'm not anti-medical facilities, because I had 2 grandparents that had to go through medical procedures during COVID. But what I am is pro-people, and it's time for us to take up and look at people and as workers who vote for us, who bring us down here to do the business of the people. Thank you, and Mr. Speaker, I yield the well.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Chair recognizes Representative Wynn to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In this chamber, we often talk about Georgia being the #1 place for businesses. But we know that Georgia is not the #1 place for workers. And we've seen this even more acutely during the past year as Georgians have battled an unprecedented public health crisis. So today I'm here to speak on behalf of workers, our essential workers who had no choice but to continue to work every single day of this pandemic. They have sustained our economy through the duration of the pandemic. Grocery workers, restaurant workers, healthcare workers, poultry workers, food delivery service workers. Those are the people who have made sure that we can safely work from home and take care of our families. And yet we have no protections in place for these workers. I've received numerous reports, emails, calls from workers and constituents who are scared and who are desperate because they're forced to work in unsafe conditions. Conditions in which their employers do not follow the guidelines put forth by the CDC. Conditions where their employers do not provide personal protective equipment. Conditions where their employers do not provide sanitary workspaces and do not protect the health of those who help sustain their businesses. In the most egregious circumstances, there are businesses who won't even allow their own employees to wear a face mask to keep themselves safe. This bill does nothing but deprives workers of a tool to hold their employers accountable. Their employers need to follow basic safety precautions to keep safe their workers. And now we have an even more deadly variant strain of this virus. This bill does nothing but enables bad businesses to get away with endangering the health and safety of their workforce. It doesn't incentivize employers to implement the full range of the CDC guidelines for keeping their workplace safe. And lastly, I would be remiss if I did not mention that this bill disproportionately impacts our communities of color because Black and Latinx workers are dying at a higher rate than any other worker in this state. We should be addressing those inequities. So today, on behalf of workers, the workers who face risk every single day to make our lives easier, to make sure our state is still running, the ones who have sustained our economy, and the ones who live in fear not only for their own lives, but bringing the virus home to their loved ones, to their moms, dad, grandparents, their children. I am here in support of these workers and will be voting against this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
That completes the members who wish to speak against the bill. Under the rules of the House, the chair of the committee from whence the bill came has the chairman's time. Chair recognizes the majority caucus whip, Representative Kelly, for the chairman's time. 20 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'll return to the well in just a moment. But for the time being, I'm going to yield a portion of my time to Representative Carpenter, and I'll reserve the balance.
Chair recognizes, whoa. Too big a hurry here. Chair recognizes Representative Carpenter for a portion of the chairman's time.
Thank you, Speaker. You know, I stand here today and I'm appalled. This bill is not about protecting large corporations. This is about protecting small businesses. And as a small business person, you hear this talk about your employees. They're my family. I went through this pandemic. I worked my butt off with my employees, facing COVID, risking my life so that I could keep my employees working. Because you know what employees want to do? They want to freaking work. They want jobs, and this bill protects businesses so there are jobs on the other end of this pandemic. I very rarely agree with Whip Kelly on litigation issues. Rarely. But I'm telling you, this bill is a good bill for Georgia small businesses. I mean, it's appalling to me that we had to sit here and listen about that we don't care about our employees just because I don't want to face a frivolous lawsuit and lose my businesses. Because at the end of the day, if I lose my business, yes, it affects me, but I have 100 employees that it affects. And I have the burden as a business owner to provide for those 100 families. And I can assure you, through this pandemic, it was a boat anchor. It hurt. I grinded. And to talk about not attacking employers who simply just want to operate their businesses, to keep their communities going, and to keep their employees working, this is a disgrace. And I love you, and I yield the well back to Whip Kelly for the remainder of the time.
Chair recognizes the chairman of the committee, Representative Kelly.
I wonder who's going to take up for the employees, Mr. Speaker, when they don't have any jobs to get, or the employees when they don't have any jobs to go to. Yesterday, as I walked out of this Capitol for lunch, I ran into a group of people who had lost their jobs because of this pandemic. I spoke with a group of people who were here crying out for help because they had lost their jobs because of COVID. I could see the hurt in their eyes. I could feel the shame on their voice. When we talk about helping businesses stay open, it's to make sure that those employees have somewhere to go to work and be productive members of society, like I think we all want to do. I talked to the grocery store workers. I talked to the factory workers. I talked to people in the hospitality industry. I talked to the hairdressers. And I heard from people that were crying out for the opportunity to go back to work. This pandemic has hit us hard, Mr. Speaker. And I weep for the lives of every person that has been lost because of COVID. I've personally lost some very close friends because of it. But I know that we also have a responsibility to make sure that we as a people, we as a state, continue to allow our economy to stay open so that businesses can continue to grow in the great climate that at least one group in this party has tried to put in place. Chairman England is going through a tough time with our budget. I've heard the criticisms from the minority party about the lack of funding. Let me tell you how you fund a budget. You do it through state tax revenue. And where do you get state tax revenue? Income from businesses and the people that get to work at them. There's only one way. We want to talk about being able to fund our schools, fund our health care. Let's make sure we have an opportunity to get the tax revenue. Let's try to be intellectually honest and not speak out of both sides of our mouth. I'll be ready for us to put this vote on the board here in a minute. We're going to get to show Georgians a clear picture of the priorities of both parties represented in this chamber. One will be the one that continues to want to keep Georgia's economy open, for employees to have somewhere to go to work, for the people that have scratched and spent their whole lives trying to build a small business. I don't have any illusions of what this vote's going to look like, but I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. I'm disappointed. There should be things we could work together on here. There should be things we could work together on here. This is one of those things. This is one of those times. Mr. Speaker, I appreciate all the effort that's gone into this measure. I appreciate the support from you and from the other members of my caucus. This is important that we make sure that the doors stay open so the employees can go back to work because they want to. They want to. They want to provide for their families. Our medical facilities need to stay open. We need to be able to treat Georgians without fear of lawsuits. Mr. Speaker, I think I've said all that I need to say on this. I'll take a couple questions and then I'm going to let the people of Georgia see where the majority and minority parties' priorities are.
Do you yield for questions?
Yes, sir, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Chairman Knight to your right for a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, I'll yield.
To the whip, isn't it true that the first bill we just voted on, the IRC update, had a provision in it by which Georgia is recognizing 100% deduction for meals? Isn't that an effort in which we are putting in by the line item and the amount $50 million over the next 4 years is what the cost estimate is on that? Aren't we putting our money back towards businesses, especially the small businesses, the restaurants such as Representative Carpenter's that got up and spoke so eloquently?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate that question. We voted just a few minutes ago on the IRC update. No one knows that better than you. But the $50 million that we're recognizing in a loss of state tax revenue is so that individuals who choose to go out and eat, and we're encouraging their behavior going out to eat because we know that these restaurants are having such a hard time, and we want to encourage people to go out and eat. And so that's one way, again, that we've showed that we're trying to support that restaurant industry. But it's important not only that we give the deduction, but that we make sure that the doors are open for people who want to go have a meal. And that's what this bill will help do. Thank you for the question.
One further question, Mr. Speaker, if the representative will yield.
I'll yield.
Isn't it true that that board had unanimous support for that?
It did.
Then, to the gentleman, I'm not understanding how you could support that measure and not support providing the protection for not only the restaurants but all the Georgia businesses in order to be open. I appreciate the work you've done on this, and I'd urge everyone's support of this bill.
I don't understand it either, and I'm done trying. I'll take one more, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Chairman Dubnik to your left for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
I'll yield.
Whip Kelly, is it not true that I represent the people of Gainesville and Hall County?
I know that to be correct.
Is it not further true that Gainesville is affectionately referred to as the poultry capital of the world?
That's absolutely correct.
And is it not further true that during this pandemic, the business owners, the Georgia Poultry Federation, the suppliers to those plants and manufacturing facilities, and most importantly, the workers, the frontline workers, came together in an effort to sit around a table to find a way for everyone to go to work, to be safe? And wasn't it those frontline workers who came up with the vast majority of safety protocols to be put in place?
I know that to be absolutely correct, and the gentleman to be able to speak on it with the passion that he has for his community and the poultry industry as a whole. It is a group effort. It took a lot of people to keep our economy going. It's going to continue to take a lot of us. And I hope that we can all work together to try and make sure that the citizens of Georgia have protection, that our employees and our workers have an opportunity to go to work, and that our healthcare community can continue to be protected from frivolous litigation, which would close the doors of so many small businesses. Mr. Speaker, I'll yield the well.
I know you said only 2 questions,
Yes, sir.
but there's one you may want to take.
I'll be glad to, Mr.
Chair recognizes the chair of the Committee on Information and Audits, Chairman Hogan, for a question.
Yes, sir, Mr.
Does the gentleman yield?
I will.
Isn't this all about keeping your favorite place on St. Simon, Southern Soul, your favorite barbecue place in the world, protecting their employees and keeping this business open?
The gentleman knows that when I'm visiting down on the coast, I do like to have a little barbecue at Southern Soul, and they're a great small business that operates on St. Simon's like so many restaurants that operate across our state. And we do need to make sure that they continue to keep their doors open, as well as the ones like Representative Carpenter, like the numerous others that exist just within steps of this Capitol and across our great state. I appreciate the question, Mr. Speaker, and I'll yield the well.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered on House Bill 112? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. What purpose does Chairman Chokus rise?
Parliamentary inquiry, Mr.
State your inquiry.
Isn't it true that as chairman of the Small Business Development Committee, this morning we heard testimony from restaurants where 20% of the restaurants in Georgia are closed, and many of them will not reopen? And isn't it also true that in small business, the employees, the frontline workers, are the most valuable asset in small business? And I personally was somewhat offended when people said that we, as small business people, don't take care of our employees. We have sneeze guards in place in retail establishments. We have masks available. We have thermometers. As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, I have a thermometer in my briefcase that I take with me, not only to check myself, but the people that I associate with, to make sure we do those healthcare precautions. We social distance.
Is there a parliamentary inquiry in this somewhere?
Yes, sir, there is. There is.
Can we get to it?
Yes, sir. Isn't it further true that these things protect small business so that we can provide jobs for hard-working Georgians?
I am sure the gentleman believes very intensely. Yeah, don't forget to vote one way or the other. Chair, for what purpose does Representative Ridley rise?
Parliamentary
State your inquiry.
Mr. Speaker, is it not true that the 3 people that stood up in opposition of this and said that they were worried that the companies was worried about their bottom line are all trial lawyers, and really they could be worried about their bottom line? That's just a country boy's analogy of it.
Well, let's not get into all that now. What purpose does Representative Thomas rise?
Inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that in our great state of Georgia that we have more employees in this state than we have businesses? And if we speak that we are for the people, but we have not spoken that we are for the employees, and is it not further true that there is no accountability for these businesses if they do not follow the CDC guidelines? And these lawsuits, if they do not follow the CDC guidelines, are not frivolous.
I'm sure the lady believes that to be true. For what purpose does the Minority Caucus Whip, Representative Wilkerson, rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that we can have a vigorous debate without attacking each other on the opposite side of the aisle? And is it not further true that we had a bill that we all supported, my fellow CPAs supported a bill that supported small businesses? And is it not further true that to get in the well and to attack someone for caring about workers is probably not what this chamber cares about? And is it not that further true that if we had instituted the same mask policy in the marketplace that we've done at the Capitol, that we might be a little further along? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I think all of our rhetoric can be toned down, both sides. Both sides. All right, that's all the parliamentary inquiries. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of House Bill 112. The ayes are 99, the nays are 68. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to a group of privileged resolutions.
Honoring the life and memory of J.B. Tate. Honoring the life and memory of Ella Mae Lewis. Honoring the life and memory of William Pete Bridges. Congratulating the Pierce County Bears football team for winning the 2020 GHSA Class AAA State Football Championship. Recognizing and congratulating Willie F. Marchman. Commending the Pinecrest Academy football team. Recognizing and commending June Merritt upon the grand occasion of her retirement and for other purposes. That completes the reading of the privilege resolution.
Is there any objection to the adoption of the privilege resolutions? The chair hears none and the resolutions are adopted. We have one more item of business, and y'all might want to pay attention. In case anybody hadn't noticed, we've been flying since yesterday without an adjournment resolution. I think the majority leader has now fixed that problem. Chair recognizes, Clerk, would you read the caption to a resolution, please?
Senate Resolution 82 by Senator Dugan the 30th, Gooch the 51st, Kennedy the 18th, Butler the 55th, and others. A resolution relative to meetings and adjournments of the General Assembly.
Chair recognizes the majority leader to present the resolution. House will be in order. If you need to go on, then excuse yourself. Some people might want to know what our schedule is, though. Gentlemen may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Clerk, if you would put the schedule on the board, thank you. A few folks will take a look at this next scheduling resolution we've come up with that takes us through the 1st of March, day 25. Hopeful that this is something we can all agree on in a very bipartisan manner, Mr. Leader. And I believe it's we've worked on it very diligently. I believe it is always, as our scheduling efforts are, to be respectful to the members, to their family commitments, to their work commitments, to make sure that they can also take care of their business outside of this body. But it also gives us time to make sure we tend to the urgent business that we're here tasked to take care of. If you will, take a look at it. Like I say, we takes us through the 1st of March, which will be day 25. In 4 days this week, 3 days next week as we take out President's Day on Monday and then off on Friday. Then 5 days the last week of this month, and then again come back in on Monday, March 1st for day 25. That's what the scheduling resolution takes us to, Mr. Speaker. I'd be glad to answer a question if there are any, or if not, I will be certainly be very hopeful that the members of this body will adopt this scheduling resolution with a positive vote.
Do you yield for a question?
I sure could, yes, sir.
Chair recognizes the Dean of this House, Dean Smyrie, to your left.
To the majority leader, yesterday we had a conversation, and a lot of members were kind of in the position of seeing that yesterday was our last day according to the resolution that was adopted by the House and Senate. So for edification purposes, education now, new members, is it not true that if you have a resolution and the said date is in there and the agreement is now with the Senate, that you can continue to just meet until the clock literally runs out? So would you clear that up to members that on yesterday, the reason and the rationale was that we could continue on until there's a joint resolution from the House and the Senate. Just wanted to clear that up with some members. Saw yesterday that we're here today but the resolution said February the 8th was some people thought that was a drop dead date, but it's not. We can continue on with this legislative session. Weekends, everything will count unless we have a resolution that's adopted in our schedule. Is that not true?
That is true to my friend. I don't think I can explain it any better than it was just explained. Thank you, Dean, for explaining that, and that is no different than this body has always operated under that same premise. And we were able to reach an agreement yesterday, but we're not able to get everything back from the Senate in time. So we have it today, and we think it's the right dates are on this here before us, and I would ask for your favorable consideration.
You have another question if you care to yield.
I'll yield for one more, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representative Bruce to your right for a question.
Will the gentleman yield?
I'll yield to my friend.
Thank you, sir. Has there been any agreement on when crossover day is going to be?
No, sir. The Senate has a crossover day, but that's a Senate rule, and we will certainly continue to work with the Senate as we consider a crossover day.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
With that, Mr. Speaker, I
No
yield.
further questions.
Thank you, sir. You will ask for your favorable consideration.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which was favorable to the passage of the bill or the resolution? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this resolution now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the resolution will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the adoption of Senate Resolution 82. The ayes are 159. The nays are 0. This resolution, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Clerk, I'm going to ask you to read House Rule 133.
Rule 133. When the question is put, every member within the chamber shall vote unless the member is immediately and particularly interested therein, or unless the member is excused by the House. A motion by a member to be excused from the voting must be made before the House divides or before the call of the yeas and nays is commenced, and it shall be decided without debate. The member making the motion may briefly state the reason why it should prevail. In every case where the seat of a member is being contested, the sitting member and the contestant shall both retire from the House before the vote is taken.
Does anyone not understand that rule? Sitting in your seat and not voting violates the rules of the House. Now, before we got started this session, I encouraged all of you to read the rule book. Today we've had to remind you of a couple. The next step will be enforcement. We're going on now to announcements. Chair recognizes Representative Burnow for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Women's Legislative Caucus will meet upon adjournment. The lunches are already downstairs in room 216. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Watson for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Appropriations Subcommittee on General Government will meet at 3:30 in room 506 CLOB. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Hatchett for an announcement.
Thank you, Speaker. The Majority Caucus will meet at 12:30, Floyd Room, Twin Towers, 12:30.
Chair recognizes Representative Bonner for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Tomorrow morning at 7 a.m., our Legislative Fellowship, room 403. Tomorrow is Bring a Friend Day, and you will get a free donut. So we'll see you there.
Do you have to bring a friend to get the donut? Chair recognizes Chairman Parsons for an announcement.
Thank you, Speaker. Energy, Utilities, and Telecommunications will meet today at 3 p.m. in room 403 here at the Capitol, up on the 4th floor. 3 p.m., 403. This is a hybrid meeting. Blake Doss says that I don't need to remind people that you might need to bring your laptop, but I probably would not know that, so I'm going to remind you that. It's a hybrid, so some people will be Zooming in, and look forward to seeing you there. We do have, I think, 3 bills. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Tankersley for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Intergovernmental Coordination Committee has a meeting today. It was scheduled at 1, but we will delay until about 1:15. But please be there. This is an important meeting. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Nix for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Ethics Committee meeting that was scheduled upon adjournment is canceled. We will reschedule it soon. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Cooper for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Health and Human Services will meet today at 2 o'clock in the CLOB room 606. Health and Human Services at 2.
Chair recognizes Chairman Lumsden for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Full House Insurance Committee will be meeting in the morning at 8 a.m. at CLOB 606. We have 2 bills on the calendar. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Martin for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The subcommittee, Energy Subcommittee of House Energy Telecommunications, Energy Utilities and Telecommunications will meet in the morning at 8 o'clock. The room is to be determined. It'll be on the House schedule, and you will get an electronic notice.
That completes our announcements. We do have a birthday today. Is it true that all the public offices and schools are closed in Greene County today? In honor of the birthday of Chairman Trey Rhodes. Let's wish him a happy birthday. Chair recognizes the Majority Leader of the House for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move that this House stand adjourned until 10 a.m. Wednesday, February the 10th, 2021.
Majority Leader has moved that this House stand adjourned until Wednesday, February 10 at 10 a.m. All in favor of that motion will say aye. All opposed will say no. The ayes clearly have it. This House will be adjourned until Wednesday at 10 a.m.